When my husband and I started dating in 2020, he was in remission from brain cancer. Up until this point in my life, I didn't know anyone personally that had been on a journey with cancer. And so when his tumor returned just 1 year into our relationship in 2021, it was absolutely gutting. Because one, we were newly in a relationship, and also my partner had brain cancer. It was a very scary and overwhelming and gutting place to be in. I really emotionally and mentally struggled. I tried to hold it together for him, but I was really struggling. He is the most optimistic, positive person you will ever meet, and especially regarding his cancer. He was given 3 to 6 months to live in 2004, and he is still here almost 20 years later, and he was not concerned. I mean, it was gutting to know that he was going through this journey of being in this relationship with cancer again, but he was like, I got this. This is just another phase of this journey that I'm on. And I did not have that optimism or hope. He really believes that he's going to live till he's 99 and that cancer is not going to be the cause of him dying. And for months, I struggled to be in that space of optimism with him. I couldn't get there. I was living in this constant state of worry that he was going to die. That does not help. If the person that you're loving and caring for is saying that's not my experience, and you're not having that experience, it's a really hard situation. It made it really difficult because I'd want to unload about these fears and worries. And finally, Kyle set this very clear boundary with me. It was like, I cannot and I will not help you process your fear and your worry and your concern, because I'm not worried or concerned, and I have to protect this knowing and this bubble of hope and optimism at all costs. And that was very hard to hear. He's the person that I love most in this world, and also we're in the midst of a global pandemic. We're isolated together, and of course he's the person that I'm talking to most, the person that I have grown to process things with. To have that taken away was very challenging, and I really struggled to know what to do with that. And for a while I just festered in that, and I kept it all inward, and that did not help me. And then one day Kyle had a visit to his oncologist, and we didn't get the most ideal news, and I couldn't tell you what that less than ideal news was, but I left it feeling really scared and worried. And Kyle was like, it's okay. It's just like a little bump, and we're gonna work through this. The journey continues on. And I couldn't get out of that state, and we were in the car about to go into the grocery store after this appointment, and he was like, I can't. You can't be in this place around me. I need to protect my knowing at all costs. So you need to get on board. I was like, that was gutting to hear. And I also understood and I respected what he was saying to me. And so I remember walking in that grocery store and having this feeling of, I can either be consumed by this fear and walk around this grocery store just feeling this sinking feeling, or I can fake it till I make it. I can pretend that everything is light and everything will be okay, and that I can shift that. That's what I did. I didn't believe it, but I chose to be really silly. And as we walked down the aisle of the grocery store, I was dancing and I was singing the song, whatever the song was playing, and just trying to pretend that everything was okay. And I noticed that as I did that, this actually feels a lot lighter. This feels a lot easier. And that began this journey of, how can I shift my mind from fear and worry and just feeling so incredibly heavy to being in a place of hope and optimism and a lightness. And that's been my journey for the last 2 or 3 years. And I feel like at this point, my optimism and hope has become more of the default than my pessimistic, fear-based approach that I was taking. That was honestly probably making me sick, and it definitely was not helping my husband on this journey, and that's what he needed from me, and I needed to show up. And so something had to change in me, and these are the things that helped me. This faking it till you make it mentality has honestly changed everything, because the more that you act in this different vibrational place, for a lack of a better word, that becomes more of the default. And so for me, it's looked like choosing to be silly. And for me, laughter has been that medicine. So being goofy as much as I can, and honestly, I feel like it's only made our relationship stronger in a time where it could really destroy our relationship. Cancer can be so challenging and push people apart, and I feel like it's only brought us closer together. And for me, that has been shifting into being lighter as much as I can. And I'm not saying that that is 100%. That's like maybe 75% of the time. And when we get bad news, choosing to say, okay, this is just a bump, and like shifting that language and faking that over time has become more of my default. Shifting that language has helped when we are in hard moments of really looking at it like, how will Kyle handle this really? How can I be positive in a non-positive situation? Choose to lean into that instead of choosing to lean into the fear. It has taken years of me figuring this out by just doing it, and honestly, I'm constantly growing and catching myself being like, how can I be more positive? And Kyle will tell me like, hey, you're not in a good headspace. How can I get you on my team? I think that's been a big shift for me. So choosing to fake it till you make it might just make your reality a lot easier and more manageable and more joyous and more love-filled, which kind of makes sense. If we are sitting in a place of fear and worry and concern, that's what we're constantly going to see. And if we are sitting in a place of hope and optimism and lightness and joy, that's what we're going to see more of. It's like when you're looking for a car to buy and you're thinking, ooh, I want this Subaru Forester. You never had seen that car before, and now you see that everywhere. It's how our mind works. It's like what you choose to focus on grows. And I think when you're facing something challenging, shifting from being in a state of fear and worry to hope and optimism, you continue to see those positive things even when things are not positive. It changes the world around you in a sense because the way that you see the world shifts. I have found that learning and educating myself has been probably the most powerful and important tool and most useful, the one that I come back to time and time again. Knowledge is power. And for me, knowledge is hope. The more I know and the more that I choose to learn, the more empowered and hope I feel. And I really realized that after reading the book Radical Remission. That book shifted probably everything. Like, I could fake it till I made it all day long, but if I hadn't read that book, I don't know if things would have fully shifted to being more into this state of optimism and hope as it has, because that book gave me a different perspective. It showed me how powerful our mind is and backed by science and research. It also gave me inspiration from how other people healed and what they used beyond the standard of care. And that just opened my mind to really see and explore things in a very different way. And I felt after reading that book that everything started to shift, and this aspect of learning and constantly exploring what's available became my default. It became my way of coping when things are hard, because there's so much research and knowledge out there if we allow ourselves to open and to explore it and dive into it. And knowledge at the end of the day is power. The more that we know, the better that we have chances of healing, because that provides us with more tools to our toolkit. For me, it's looked like whenever things are challenging, okay, what's the next thing? What else can we explore? What else is available? And choosing to dive really deep into those things. And I am constantly researching. Like, if you had to look at my browser history, it's mostly researching different drugs or different alternative treatments that can help with cancer, or how to improve the health of the brain. Choosing to take that knowledge and take actionable steps on it as best as we can. So for me, I found the book Radical Remission really helpful, and Crispy Cancer's book. Those books have been really, really insightful for me. And then also listening to podcasts or following people on social media who have healed themselves of cancer, or joining Facebook groups and reading how people have healed different things. And that has been incredibly supportive, and it gives me so much strength and hope of like, okay, there's something else available if this thing doesn't work. And we can always explore so many other things, because there's so much knowledge out there and there's so many resources out there. And if you just go on and search whatever ailment you're struggling with, there are likely many resources available. I found that to be probably one of my greatest tools in my toolkit, is my willingness and ability and my desire to learn and to evolve and to grow and to become as educated as I can on brain cancer and how Kyle can heal. Knowledge is power and it provides hope, but so is being expanded to know that if others can do it, so can you. So finding people that expand you to believe, oh, they've done that? Well, then I can do that. My husband can do that. And so finding people through social media, through Facebook groups, through podcasts that have healed cancer. And maybe it's the same type of cancer, maybe it's a different type of cancer, but it really clicked for me. I was listening to a podcast called Cannabis Health Radio. It was stories of people healing their cancer using cannabis as part of their protocol. And I chose to listen to only the stories of brain cancer because I found that was very applicable to us and to me. I listened to, 7 or 8 of these podcasts, and I just kept feeling like, if that person can do it, why can't Kyle? If they can heal their brain tumor, then why can't Kyle? If their tumor that's inoperable could shrink, why can't Kyle's? And that really opened me up to so much hope and optimism of like, there are people that are doing it, and if Kyle believes that he can, that's one big piece of this coming to be, and then using all the tools available and looking at what these people have done and being like, okay, well, we could try that. I also found going into Facebook groups designated to brain cancer or to using different healing modalities was very helpful, because same thing, I found so many stories of people being like, yeah, I went into remission, I have no evidence of disease, whatever it was. And that really allowed me to be like, well, why can't Kyle do this? So I found that having these moments of expansion of the mind to see they can do it, so can I, really help to bolster your own knowing and your own trust of like, okay, hope is there. Healing is possible. I'm seeing that it's possible. I'm seeing that others have done this. It's given me a greater strength and ability to see that can happen for Kyle too. That his knowing is right, and we just need to utilize the tools available. Expansion is so important. Intuition. Intuition is something that has been my guiding light. Which makes sense because it's intuition. I feel like through this journey, my intuition has only grown. And as I've leaned into these other pieces of faking it till I made it, finding knowledge, expanding, my intuition has only grown, and really trusting and bolstering that intuition as much as I can. And for me, it's just a deep knowing. My intuition is a deep knowing, and I see parallels in things like, okay, Kyle went keto and then his tumor started growing. Kyle went back to plant-based and started cannabis, and now his tumor's been stable. And being able to see those patterns and listen to my gut and to my intuition of being like, oh, there's a correlation. And maybe Kyle's doctors aren't picking up on it or whatever, but I know because I have lover's intuition, for lack of a better word, or it could be mother's intuition, whatever role you're in, and learning to to trust that. I have found myself just leaning more and more and more into that intuition and knowing that it's never going to lead me astray. Even if it doesn't make sense. Like, I just have this feeling like we need to explore cannabis. Sure enough, find this podcast, there's all these people using cannabis to heal, or having an intuition that Kyle needed to get another opinion, and someone whose husband also has brain cancer recommended this doctor out of UCLA, and I just knew in my bones that was the one. Did very little research on him, get to UCLA, find out he's studying the exact mutation that my husband has. Had no idea. It's like those little things that remind us that, like, we'll always be pointed in the right direction of where we're meant to be. We just have to listen and get quiet and pay attention and trust it. And the more that I've trusted and leaned into those things, the more that those little invitations from the universe, my higher self, have grown, and they are clear. They're very clear of like, you need to do this, explore this, change this, leaning into that. It makes me feel like I have a very active role in Kyle's care, and I'm in this relationship in the up here space with his tumor and with his highest self, and whatever is for the greater good of him and for the situation. And that's really empowering. It makes my role feel really important, and learning to really trust that knowing and lean into it has given me a lot of hope. It's given me a lot of optimism of, I know. Just like Kyle knows, my knowing has grown, and it will continue to grow. And that knowing has kept me sane in moments, and also it feels overwhelming of like, oh my gosh, we have so much that is available. I don't think I would have believed anyone if they told me I would have gotten to this place, because I was so riddled with fear and worry, literally just being consumed by thinking that my husband was going to die at any moment, and he's still here, and he's not dying. He's stable and will continue to improve. Getting to this place of truly believing that has been life-changing. Now that I found this hope and optimism for myself, it's been about protecting that. That means staying in this place of love and hope, which also means setting boundaries and having hard conversations, and people that aren't meeting you where you need to be met taking up as much space in your life as they might have before. Because once you create this hope and optimism, for me, it's been, you have to protect it, just as Kyle did with me, because you gotta live in this bubble of optimism. And if you're not, it just sucks you down. And that's where I was living at before. Now I find we're constantly in this place of, how do we protect this bubble? And maybe not in a conscious conversation. Yes, that does happen, but by choosing to bring things into our life and do things and experiences, and what we say yes to and what we say no to is vital. And choosing to allow as much good into our life and let go of the negative and the heavy and the fearful. And for me, that's looked like not watching the news every day and being really protective of my energy and trying to stay in this space of hope. Because once you've gotten to this place, it's a much more enjoyable place to be. And I understand why Kyle set that boundary and was so protective. It keeps you in a place where you can heal. If you're living in fear, your body's in a place of fear. And when it's in fear, it cannot heal. When you're in a place of joy and love and ease, your body can be in a state of rest, digest, and repair, which it can heal. It has a really practical reason as to why we need to protect and find and be in a place of hope. And I hope that we can all find it, and it's available for everyone. Just shifting our mindset, choosing to be open that good can happen instead of bad, defaulting to seeing the positive thing that could come from it instead of being consumed by the negative or fearful thing that could come of whatever challenges we face. It's a massive shift. It's one that changes your life, your whole perspective. That's been my experience. Even though Kyle set this incredibly hard, probably the hardest boundary anyone has ever set with me, it honestly has been maybe the greatest gift of my life, because it forced me to find myself, to find my own knowing, to find my own hope, my own optimism. And it doesn't just apply to him. It applies to my own health. It applies to everything in life, that hope is possible, healing is possible, joy is possible, even in the most challenging times. If we open up, if we allow ourselves to lead with that love, with that hope, and not let the fear consume us. And so finding the things that help you stay protected from being consumed by those worries and those concerns, and just faking it and believing and becoming that hope and knowing. And even if you're going through something with a partner, with a family member who isn't as hopeful and optimistic as Kyle is, you could become that for your loved one. You could radiate that hope and optimism. That may shift something for them, just as Kyle's experience has shifted that for me. Healing is possible. Hope is possible, even in the most challenging times.